Look at the salt shaker sitting on your kitchen table right now. Or look at that posh-looking pink grinder you bought from the supermarket because you thought you were doing your health a massive favor. What if I told you that the innocent white dust you sprinkle over your evening meals is hiding things that would make your stomach turn? We are talking heavy-duty anti-caking chemicals originally designed for industrial machinery. Hidden sugars you never gave permission to put in your body. And depending on which supermarket aisle you grabbed it from, thousands of microscopic shards of plastic that you are eating, digesting, and circulating through your bloodstream this very second. You probably think that morning bloating, that weird metallic aftertaste in your mouth, or that constant unquenchable thirst is just a normal part of life or the result of a bad night's sleep. It isn't. It is the literal chemical fallout of a multi-million-pound industry that has spent the last 100 years gaslighting the British public into believing that salt is just salt, completely blinding us to what they are actually scraping off the factory floor. In this video, we are stripping back the slick corporate marketing and auditing the UK's most popular salts against the only criteria that actually matter. You will find out exactly why the most expensive tub on the shelf is often the biggest scam going. I will show you the precise laboratory data that caught high-end lifestyle brands hiding toxic heavy metals like lead and arsenic in products marketed as pure wellness foods. We will break down 10 incredibly popular supermarket salts you need to chuck in the bin immediately, and I will give you the 3 clean, untainted brands that actually deserve a spot in your cupboard. Make sure you stick around until the absolute end, because the single most famous, trusted brand in Britain, the one with the iconic packaging that your mum, your gran, and every pub in the country has used for decades, is sitting right near the top of our worst offenders list. And the truth behind its production line will change how you shop forever. Before we start naming and shaming the specific culprits lurking on the shelves of your local Tesco, Asda, or Sainsbury's, we need to lay down an educational foundation. Because you cannot fight a corporate magic trick until you know how the mechanism works. At its absolute baseline, real salt is beautiful. It is an ancient, natural mineral complex composed of sodium and chloride, bound together with dozens of essential trace minerals like magnesium, potassium, and calcium. Think of natural, unrefined salt like a vintage, hand-built mechanical sports car. Every single raw component works together perfectly to help your body regulate hydration, blood volume, and nerve signals without overloading your system. But giant corporate food manufacturers do not want to sell you a vintage sports car. They want a cheap, uniform, mass-produced commodity that they can control down to the micromilligram. Regardless of what it does to your organs, to feed the massive industrial appetite of modern food processing, the salt industry completely rewrote the rules of nature. They took raw, damp, mineral-rich salt from mines and oceans and ran it through aggressive, high-heat chemical refinery lines. They stripped out the magnesium, bleached away the natural gray and tan hues using heavy chemicals, and boiled it down until it was nothing but pure, clinical, aggressive sodium chloride. It is the exact dietary equivalent of taking a whole piece of organic fruit, stripping away all the natural fiber, vitamins, and protective antioxidants, and leaving you with a pile of pure, refined white chemical sugar. This aggressive processing creates a massive structural problem for the corporations. Pure sodium chloride absolutely hates moisture. The second a bottle of ultra-refined salt hits the damp British air, it absorbs water like a giant sponge and solidifies into a useless rock-hard brick that won't pour. So how did the factories fix their self-inflicted design flaw? Simple. They pumped the salt full of chemical anti-caking agents like ferrocyanide or calcium silicate to keep the grains sliding past each other through industrial packing machines and your household shaker. Imagine coating every single grain of your food in a microscopic layer of waterproof industrial resin just so it flows nicely out of a plastic tub. That is exactly what you are swallowing with your dinner. To make matters worse, when public health officials realized decades ago that the population was suffering from severe nutritional deficiencies, they decided to use cheap table salt as a vehicle for mass medication. They forced potassium iodide into the mix, but because refined iodine evaporates and breaks down into a useless gas when exposed to the atmosphere, they had to add a chemical stabilizer to lock it in place. That stabilizer is dextrose, literal sugar. You are seasoning your morning eggs with a highly processed, chemically altered cocktail of bleached sodium, anti-clumping chemicals, and hidden sugars, all disguised as an innocent kitchen basic. The real psychological masterclass, though, was how the marketing departments convinced us that this industrial vandalism was actually a premium feature. They launched massive advertising campaigns that associated blindingly white, perfectly uniform, dry salt with cleanliness, safety, and modern civilization. They taught shoppers to look at natural, damp, mineral-streaked gray salt as dirty, primitive, and contaminated. We fell for the illusion hook, line, and sinker, turning our backs on natural's nutrition in favor of a bleached factory byproduct. But the wheel has turned again, and the modern wellness aisle is playing the exact same trick in reverse. Slapping a premium price tag on trendy pink rock salts that claim to detox your body while secretly carrying a hidden payload of modern industrial runoff. Let's see just how deep this deception goes when we look at the actual brands sitting on British supermarket shelves right now. Let's start right at the bottom of the barrel with number 10, Tesco Essentials Table Salt. This is the ultimate example of the anonymous, generic budget container that sits in hundreds of thousands of student flats and family cupboards across the country. It costs mere pennies for a massive drum, and that rock-bottom price tag is exactly how they get you to stop asking basic questions. Flip the cheap plastic tub around and look at the ingredients list. You will see salt, sodium ferrocyanide as an anti-caking agent, and occasionally a stabilizer. There is no mention of where this salt was dug up, which mine it came from, or how many industrial processing plants it passed through before being dumped into a corporate warehouse. When consumer advocacy groups like Which attempt to trace the supply chains of these ultra-cheap baseline goods, they hit a brick wall of corporate non-disclosure. If you drop a spoonful of this stuff into a clean glass of warm water, it leaves behind a cloudy, hazy residue that floats near the top. That is the anti-caking agent resisting the water, refusing to dissolve properly. It is so finely ground that it dissolves instantly on your tongue, giving you an immediate, aggressive punch of pure salinity that makes it incredibly easy to accidentally overseason your food and skyrocket your blood pressure. Moving along to number 9, we hit Sainsbury's cooking salt. It is packaged in a massive, nondescript cardboard box designed to look like a practical, no-nonsense kitchen staple for boiling pasta water or baking bread. But what they are actually selling you is an aggressively stripped commodity. The manufacturing process for this giant box involves washing and boiling raw brine at extreme industrial temperatures, removing every single trace element until it is 99.9% pure sodium chloride. It is completely dead salt. It has been utterly hollowed out to maximize shelf life and ensure it never clumps in the warehouse, regardless of how damp the British weather gets. Because it completely lacks any natural magnesium or potassium content, the flavor profile is incredibly harsh and sharp. It lacks any culinary depth or roundness, behaving more like a chemical reagent than an ingredient meant for human consumption. If you are already feeling like checking your own kitchen cupboard right now, hit that subscribe button, because the sheer scale of the cutting corners gets significantly harsher from here. At number 8, we have Asda iodized table salt. Now, I want to be entirely fair here, because fairness is the only thing that gives an investigation like this any real teeth. The inclusion of potassium iodide in cheap table salt is historically a fantastic public health measure that helped wipe out thyroid deficiencies across the UK. But this is an audit of product purity and corporate transparency, and Asda's house brand fails the test on both counts. To stop the volatile iodine from reacting with the air and disappearing completely before you even open the container, they mix in dextrose, literal sugar. While the trace amount of sugar won't ruin your diet, the real issue is the total lack of traceability. Asda buys this bulk commodity salt from massive, rotating third-party commercial suppliers on the global market, choosing whichever supplier offers the lowest bid per ton that week. You are buying a total mystery box wrapped in a familiar British supermarket logo. That brings us to number 7, Morrison's Table Salt, which rounds out the standard supermarket budget trio. This brand perfectly demonstrates the psychological trap of bulk buying cheap kitchen essentials on total autopilot. Because it costs so little, you never bother to read the back panel, never ask where it was harvested, and never consider why it is so unnaturally white. The reality is that these massive grocery chains use legal loopholes that allow them to label a product simply as salt without disclosing the complex chemical bleaching agents used to turn the naturally gray or brown rock minerals into a pristine, clinical white powder. A characteristic consumer review on an independent grocery forum sums it up perfectly. It feels like pouring white sand onto my food. It leaves a bitter, chemical aftertaste and makes everything taste like it came out of a laboratory factory line rather than a kitchen. Let's step up the weirdness at number 6 with low salt. You can find this distinct blue tub sitting proudly in the healthy living aisle of almost every Boots, Superdrug, and Waitrose in the country. It is marketed aggressively to people trying to lower their blood pressure, promising all the flavor of standard salt with 66% less sodium. How do they achieve that miracle? By swapping out the sodium chloride for potassium chloride. While this engineered blend can be a genuinely useful tool under strict medical supervision, it does not belong in a clean, everyday kitchen cupboard for the general public. According to clinical guidance published by the British Heart Foundation, hidden high doses of potassium chloride can be incredibly dangerous for individuals with undiagnosed kidney issues or those taking specific blood pressure medications, as the kidneys struggle to filter the excess out of the bloodstream. Beyond the health risks, from a culinary perspective, low salt is a disaster. Potassium chloride leaves a distinctly metallic, intensely bitter aftertaste that completely ruins delicate dishes, leaving you with a meal that tastes like you accidentally chewed on a copper coin. At number 5, we hit Badia Coarse Salt, a brand that has grown massive across international grocery aisles and online delivery services like Ocado. They built their entire image on rustic, authentic seasonings, tricking you into believing that because the grains are large and coarse, the product is naturally harvested and clean. It isn't. This is just standard industrial commodity salt that skipped the final fine milling machine stage. It contains the exact same chemical flow agents and undergoes the same aggressive thermal refining as the cheap powders, but it is sold at a steep premium just because the crystals look pretty. You wouldn't buy a bottle of extra virgin olive oil if the label refused to state which country the olives were grown in. And you wouldn't buy coffee bags labeled simply beans. Yet we willingly accept a mystery black box from brands like Badia just because the front of the packaging looks slightly rustic. Number 4 takes us into the world of processed shortcuts with Schwartz Seasoned Salt. This is an incredibly popular seasoning blend found in the spice aisles of Tesco and Morrison's, packed with paprika, celery seeds, and anti-caking agents. It tastes brilliant on chips, but it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The moment a manufacturer mixes salt with starches, hidden sugars, and chemical flavor enhancers to prevent the spices from clumping over time, you have left the world of pure minerals and entered the world of ultra-processed food. The salt used in these blends is always the lowest grade, most heavily refined factory byproduct available, completely masked by heavy spices and industrial flavorings. It is the single most engineered item on our list, designed for corporate shelf-life consistency rather than biological purity. If what you wanted was true, clean seasoning for your family, this artificial shortcut is definitely not it. Now we enter the true hall of shame. Number 3 is a massive shocker. Sainsbury's Taste the Difference Himalayan Pink Salt. This is where the wellness industry's marketing completely unravels under laboratory scrutiny. Millions of British shoppers pay up to 8 times more for these fancy pink jars because they genuinely believe the rosy tint is proof of superior health benefits, pure mountain air, and natural detoxifying minerals. But where does that pink color actually come from? Independent laboratory testing conducted on dozens of commercial pink salt samples revealed that the pink hue is caused by iron oxide, literal rust, alongside measurable trace amounts of heavy metals including lead, cadmium, and arsenic. In several independent global studies, samples of gourmet pink salts were found to contain lead levels that came dangerously close to international food safety limits. The wellness industry has successfully convinced you to pay a premium price for unrefined rock minerals that contain heavy metal contaminants that would see any other food product immediately pulled from the shelves. That brings us to number 2, Cerebo's Iodized Table Salt. This is one of the most historical, deeply trusted brands in the entire British landscape, famous for its vintage advertisements showing a boy chasing a bird to pour salt on its tail. It has been a mainstay of British kitchens for over a century, and its comforting familiarity is precisely why no one ever thinks to question it. Cerebo's is the absolute archetype of the industrial illusion. It is aggressively refined down to pure white sodium chloride, packed with anti-caking agents, and stabilized with dextrose. It is number 2 on our list, not because it is a toxic poison, but because it is the single most believed salt in the country. It is the brand that successfully trained generations of British consumers to believe that a highly processed, chemically altered factory powder was the gold standard of kitchen cleanliness. Finally, the number 1 salt you need to avoid at all costs is the generic white label, no-name table salt bag found at the absolute bottom shelves of deep discount stores. It represents the total surrender of quality control. It has zero brand reputation to defend, no public corporate testing data, the highest concentration of chemical flow additives, and an entirely anonymous global supply chain that switches sources constantly to shave fractions of a penny off the production cost. It is the ultimate expression of buying on total autopilot, and it deserves the top spot because it represents the exact moment we stop asking what we are putting into our bodies, and now what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the corporate sludge, the bleaching factories, and the terrifying heavy metal readouts of the luxury wellness market. It is time for your reward. We are moving into the clean, transparent, biologically compatible salts that actually deserve a permanent home on your kitchen counter. These are the brands that do not hide behind sleek branding or lie about their origins. They are genuinely available to buy right here in the UK, and they prove that you do not need to fall victim to marketing tricks to feed your family clean nutrients. eBay UK Week kick off the recommended list at number 3 with Cornish sea salt. This is the absolute gold standard for an everyday mainstream upgrade that you can pick up on your next routine trip to Tesco, Sainsbury's, or Waitrose. Harvested just 8 meters from the shore on the protected coast of Cornwall, this brand completely flips the script on how industrial salt is made. Instead of using violent heat refinement or chemical bleaching agents, they pump clean ocean water into a modern facility where it is gently evaporated using low-energy, sustainable vacuum technology. Because they filter the seawater meticulously before evaporation and retain the natural marine minerals, it keeps its beautiful, natural mineral density completely intact. When you taste Cornish sea salt, the difference is immediate and physical. It has a smooth, well-rounded, peppery bite without that aggressive chemical sting that characterizes mass-produced factory powders. Cost-wise, a standard tub will run you around £2 to £2.50, which breaks down to less than 2 pence per serving. The only minor downside to keep an eye on is that because it is completely free from chemical anti-caking agents, it can absorb ambient moisture from a steamy British kitchen over time, meaning you might have to give the tub a quick shake before using it. It is the perfect, budget-friendly gateway choice for anyone wanting to escape the industrial table salt trap without spending a fortune. Moving up to number 2, we have Redmond Real Salt. Now, I promised you that I would address the microplastic epidemic, and this brand is exactly how you beat it. In 2018, a landmark study published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology shocked the scientific community by revealing that over 90% of global sea salt brands contained measurable microplastic fragments. If you want to completely guarantee that your salt has never touched modern industrial plastic pollution, you have to go underground. Redmond Real Salt is harvested from a massive, ancient, protected subterranean seabed in Utah that was sealed off by volcanic ash millions of years before humanity ever invented plastic or dumped industrial chemicals into the ecosystem. This product is imported directly to the UK and is widely available through specialty health shops, premium grocers, and major online platforms like Ocado and Health. Because it is completely unrefined, it retains over 60 naturally occurring trace minerals, which give the crystals a beautiful, subtle off-white and pink speckled appearance. The company is radically transparent, publishing independent third-party laboratory reports that confirm near-zero microplastic contamination and heavy metal levels that sit safely below strict health guidelines. It is undeniably more expensive, costing around £8 to £10 for a large refill pouch, but because it is a pure dense rock mineral, you need to use far less of it to achieve the same seasoning depth. It is the definitive choice for the health-conscious shopper who wants an absolute barrier against modern environmental contaminants. Santa Prisca and Coasho won that brings us to the absolute number 1 spot, the champion that chefs, culinary professionals, and home cooks have universally trusted for over a century. Maldon Sea Salt. Harvested in the coastal town of Maldon in Essex since 1882, this is a legendary British masterpiece that wins our audit for the most straightforward, honest, and scientifically validated reasons. The process is pure, traditional magic. Seawater is drawn from the local Blackwater estuary during high spring tides, filtered, and then slowly heated in giant open metal pans. As the water evaporates, the salt crystallizes into magnificent, hollow, pyramid-shaped flakes that are carefully raked out by hand. In September 2025, independent third-party laboratory testing coordinated by consumer safety organizations analyzed Maldon sea salt flakes using high-precision mass spectrometry. The results were a total triumph for British production, coming back with absolute non-detect results for lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic, alongside vanishingly low microplastic counts. From a practical perspective, Maldon is a sensory masterclass. The delicate, crispy pyramid flakes do not dissolve instantly like factory sand. Instead, they deliver a clean, crisp, momentary burst of pure salinity before melting beautifully into your food. It is widely available in every major supermarket from Asda to Marks & Spencer, costing around £3 for a massive box that will last an average household months, making it an incredibly affordable luxury. It is exactly what it says it is, from a place it can name, processed as minimally as possible, proving that true purity doesn't require a flashy wellness label or an astronomical price tag. Now that you know exactly which jars to rescue from your cupboard and which bags to throw straight into the wheelie bin, let us arm you with the ultimate toolkit so you never get conned in the supermarket aisle again. If you want to spot a fraudulent, over-engineered salt in less than 3 seconds flat without ever needing a laboratory, you just need to internalize 5 concrete shopping rules. Rule number 1, look for the phrase unrefined or harvested by traditional methods explicitly stamped on the label. This is your absolute baseline green light that the factory skipped the aggressive, mineral-stripping heat processes. Rule number 2, scan the ingredients panel for the words sodium ferrocyanide, E535, E5V1, or calcium silicate, if any of these chemical anti-caking flow agents appear on the packaging. Put the tub right back on the shelf of your local Asda or Morrison's, because it means the product has been processed to death and coated in waterproof industrial resins. Rule number 3, treat the word iodized as an automatic red flag for hidden additives. Unless your doctor has specifically ordered you to take an iodine supplement, avoid it for general kitchen use, because that single word guarantees the inclusion of chemical stabilizers and hidden sugars like dextrose. Rule number 4, never judge a product by its geographical romance story or its aesthetic color. Pink is not a badge of health. It is literally iron oxide and trace heavy metals. And a highly priced jar of gourmet salt is completely useless if the manufacturer refuses to publish transparent sourcing details. Rule number 5, look for salt that lists a singular, definitive geographical point of origin, such as an estuary, a specific coastal marsh, or a named underground mine, rather than vague corporate terms like produced from multiple origins for the UK market, which is simply legal code for cheap, rotating global bulk commodities. Santa Prisca & Co. The 5-second supermarket checklist: green lights, unrefined, solar evaporation, single origin location, red flags, E535, sodium ferrocyanide, dextrose, iodized, packed from multiple countries. To wrap this whole investigation up into one clean truth, the entire modern salt industry has been meticulously built on a massive inversion of reality. The multi-million-pound corporation spent a century convincing us that a highly bleached, chemically altered, dead white factory powder was the pinnacle of clinical purity, while simultaneously tricking us into paying premium luxury prices for trendy pink wellness trends that carry a hidden payload of toxic heavy metals. The single shift in thinking you need to make today to stop being a helpless victim of their marketing budgets is to stop looking at salt as a mass-produced chemical commodity and start treating it exactly like a whole food. The less the hand of heavy industry has touched it, the better it is for your health, your family, and your cooking. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time digging into the truth with me today. Your attention is the only thing keeping these giant corporate food systems honest. If you have a friend or a family member who constantly brags about their expensive pink salt grinders or uses that cheap white plastic supermarket shaker on everything, please share this video with them immediately. They deserve to know exactly what they are digesting. Before you head off to audit your own pantry, drop a comment down below and tell me, which of these specific brands is sitting in your kitchen right now, and were you completely blindsided to see it make our avoid list? I read and reply to every single comment myself. If you want to see exactly how these same corporate giants are ruining another everyday kitchen staple, click on our deep dive expose on the modern olive oil industry linked on your screen right now. Stop buying on total autopilot, look after your health, and I will catch you in the next chat. Scan the back, ignore the front.